Hey, welcome back, everyone. First, I want to give a huge thank you to the support of this channel. End of last week, we got monetized. We're fully in. Sorry, you're gonna have to look at some ads now, but that's a necessary evil for us to grow this channel and and make it self-sufficient in some way. So that happened. Still got my hand. That hurts like heck. Can't get in to see a surgeon until December 4th or something, but whatever. All right. Well, this week I wanted to go over, I've been kind of quiet on Discord because I've been working on this other project, is Christmas cards. I got to get Christmas cards out. And of course, I'm using Midjourney and some other AI tricks and some Photoshop trickery, and I wanted to kind of take you along for the ride. All right, let's get into it. All right, so to start off with this card, I knew I wanted to do something. I live in New England. I wanted to do something that was golden age of illustration. Think Lidecker and Rockwell and just that cozy, you've seen the movie Funny Farm, like idyllic New England Rockwellian ideal. Anyway, I created a real simple prompt. Wanted a family of 4, 2 sons, mother and father in winter clothes, winter hat, deep snow. I'll show. I'm gonna put it up. Don't worry. But as you can see, so here I ran it a lot. So you can see I ran the prompt a lot to kind of get what I wanted from it, and kept rerunning it. And then let's take a look. So you can see I have a lot of versions here. I might have forgotten to show you guys the background too. I'll have to show you. So here's our family of 4. And I'm like, okay, great start. I got a mom, a dad, 2 boys, and it's country formal, New England formal, or informal, formalish, semi-form. I don't know. Nice. Dress nicely. But there were a couple things I knew I needed to change before I went on. One, I didn't want it to be so dated as far as the clothing. I wanted it to be a little bit more modern, but have the vibe of being vintage. So I isolated what I thought needed to kind of change. And first, I was also looking at the shapes of the faces and what would work for using our face replace. So I knew my wife's face needed to change shape, and the boys' faces needed to change shape, and I wanted to get rid of this hat. So I used the very region, and went over and did a couple passes on, as you can see, these 2 faces, and I got similar shaped faces that I wanted. And I also added my dog. I needed a white lab style dog. Our dog isn't a lab. She's part lab and part Dalmatian, but I'll get to that later. So yeah, that was our next step. And then of course I needed longer hair. I got that. So we added that. Basically, I'm trying to use very region to clean up as much as I can, because I still do not trust the generative fill that Adobe has. It just doesn't have the same quality. And sometimes you get stuff and you're like, oh my God, I can't even recognize that. What is that object? What is that shape? So I try to do as much as I can with the very, and then I brought it in and did our face swap. And it did a good job. The only thing I didn't like was, if you look at the original illustration, there's very dark eyes and squinty eyes, and my wife kind of has bigger bigger eyes and brighter eyes. So I ended up running it twice over it. So I run it, I get this, and then I feed this image into it again, and I get a much better representation of what I want. There's still some render errors. You can see this jaw juts out and stuff. That I will save for Adobe to fix up. But there is our basis for the card as far as the people, as far as the actors. All right, so I thought the next, so as you can see, this is a complicated, not super complicated. Where's my clipper? Jesus. You can see I have many layers in here, lots of generative fill and stuff like that. I'm going to unhide them and go up and kind of talk about what I was doing. The thing is, these changes weren't made in this order, though. Chronologically, obviously layers are depth related, so I may have done something later in the process, but had to sneak it back behind to a lower layer. So chronologically, it's not going to align with how I worked on the image, but you'll get the idea. You'll see what I did and how I took this from a Midjourney image to a printable card that we'll be able to send out. So I rendered out, I forgot to talk, this image right here, I rendered this out of, let's get this out of the way. I rendered this out of Midjourney, and I'll put the prompt in. I think it was along the lines of the other one. I just stripped it down to a Christmas tree, and probably got that in 1 or 2 tries. Okay, so there we go. Let's look at our first layer here. And, oh, okay. So as you can see, I started, I needed a little background because my composition got weighted too far to the right. And I'm kind of talking about that because you can't see the rest of the composition yet. So I put in this very distant, low contrast New England town in the back. And I believe this is a continuation of it. This brown streak right here is when I add elements like that with generative fill, I select on the inside of what is next to it so that Photoshop can blend these nicely. So as you can see, now we've kind of got this distant New England town, very, very rough in the background. So this is reminiscent of the golden age of illustration, and there were these very, I believe, the Art Deco graphic styles that were put into Saturday Evening Post on the cover and everything. And I'm always fascinated with these, and I may be kind of stuck in a loop with them. I love them. One, they're interesting styles, but I always love how elements in the image, these great masters, they would break the frame of these, and I always found that so fascinating, and I love how that looks and how it's graphical, but it gives depth. So it's kind of like a flat element, but it's also giving depth. It's not just way in the background. So keep saying what am I doing? Happy holidays. Pretty self-explanatory. I chose stop saying I chose a font that was reminiscent of Saturday Evening Post. I believe it's called just like Saturday Morning Toast or something, and you get it off of defont.com. So yeah, we're starting to feel out these elements that we're putting in here. Now, I knew, as I was talking before with these elements, I want them to break the composition. Like, I want there to be depth in it. So I knew when I was making these, and this is like one of those things where it's not chronological, that I want the tree in front of it. So I've gone in and I've selected the tree. Subject select in Photoshop now is ridiculous. So I selected that and gave it a layer mask and put that in front of our elements. And look at that. Like, you can already see it. Like, look at how cool that is, how it's breaking the lines, like the trees of the tree branches are breaking these elements. I love that, and how it kind of goes into it. And just realized that may be on the wrong thing. Good thing I haven't sent these out. So now we kind of, this is marrying together nicely. It's starting to work. Let's move on. The render I got from Midjourney, my boys are not as short as they are in that rendering, the boys that they put into it. They're taller. So what I had done is I'd gone in and so my older boy here, I selected him with, I believe it was subject, it was subject, object select, and then you're able to pretty much pick people out of a crowd. And so I selected him, and then I did, under edit, there is content aware scale, and that does a fantastic job of scaling it in a proportional way. There are some errors still left, but now he's at a proper height in comparison to the rest of the family. And then let's see, this next layer, I'm putting a shadow on my wife because I want to make sure these are married together, because now the render's changed. And what is this? This layer, I'm painting some elements onto my dog's face because she's part Dalmatian, and there's just a little bit of she's just not a pure lab. So I got to make her a little bit more identifiable. Did I do both of these? Yes. So sorry, as I move through here. Here I'm fixing my son's arm and making sure there's not a double sleeve, double repetitiveness. My neck, oh, this is a fun one. So as you can see the bottom here, we have our family and the cutout, and then we have this background, and they don't match. The whites don't match with the snow, and it makes the snow look dirty and filthy and gross. So what I did was I selected on the inside of all the characters. So we had an area to blend, and then I selected the ground area, the foreground, and I had generative fill. I didn't put a prompt in, I just let it go, and let's see how they marry the two. And boom, look at that. That is beautiful. It gives it like this really nice soft lighting and just combines the two elements so nicely. Like, that's where the strength of Adobe's AI is right now. Next stop was I had to grow my youngest boy and make him taller. And it seems like they grow that fast. Seriously. And then same thing, content aware scale. Jesus, Adobe, and they just name their tools with these tongue twisters. Okay. Next thing is I knew I wanted a frame. I wanted to tie this whole thing together. So I dropped a black frame. Gives us a nice look around it. I hope that shows up in YouTube world. But yeah, we have this frame, and now we're getting these flat graphical elements that are really tying into the characters in the more painterly, which is something that, those early illustrators did so well. Next stop. Okay, so on my youngest son's shoulder, there was some type of render or transparency error, content-aware fill, fix that right away. He's got an arm that's all dangling out there bizarrely. So I ran content-aware fill on that, and then I wasn't really happy with that because it looks a little too long. So I ran it again, and we got that, and a third time. And I kind of want these things to drift off. They don't need to be up front and like where you see the hands and stuff. You just kind of need to get a good silhouette in there, a good shape. And that's what I was going for. So my next, you'll see I removed my youngest son's pocket. And the reason I did that was, while it's a nice element, it gives shape, and it's trying to define where his waist and hips are. And obviously with the content-aware scale, it didn't quite, it's too high. So if I leave it more as like a vast, clean silhouette, or boxy type overcoat. We're now not given a landmark to where his hips and waist are. So I got rid of that. Looks like I did another pass to refine his hand over on the right. That was good. And brought my dog's ear back. That got covered up by some element. And now I'm painting some more details into my dog. Dalmatian's got these spots. She had the model for me. I called her in next to my desk and I modeled. It was fun. I like working like that. And starts to work with her. And then I put a little bit more black around her nose. And yeah, she doesn't have to be exact. We're sending this out to friends of it. I mean, it's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. It's just, it's not like, Aunt Milda is going to be like, I don't look like your dog. But if it was one of our faces, be like, so there's the human picks up on much more detail on a human face than remembering a dog's, I would say. And here we are fixing between my oldest son and wife's neck. There was just a little softening. It looked like hair or something was trying to be rendered through the hat. So our next layer, you'll see the overcoats. When I did the scale, somehow we got a double overcoat. We got 2 layers there. So this is where I'm going in with generative fill and, knocking those out. Really one pass, first choice is what that comes down to. And now this is on the other side. Same thing. Here I'm removing my oldest son's pocket. Again, it was because now we don't have that definitive landmark of where his hips are. And it looks more appropriate. Here, there is some weird artifact on my dog. I don't know what that brown thing was, so we took that out. I don't even have to clone anymore. I just use generative fill, and it's just bizarre. It's so strange how quickly our workflow is changing. Next, using the same font, I put 2023. And again, that's kind of one of these depth cues because I put that so far in front of the scene where the graphical elements for, the deco elements are behind, the text is behind. Now this is in front. It's just giving this weird illusion of depth. Our next layer here was cleaning up my son's legs. It just detail. Sometimes there's detail that just doesn't need to be there, and it's not like there's anything wrong with this first one. It's just it doesn't need to be there. So let's get rid of it. Reduce and simplify. And then this is one more double-tiered portion of the coat. And that's it. There it is. There is my family family holiday card. Pretty psyched the way it turned out. I think it's fun. I think people are going to get a kick out of it. And that's why I do this stuff. All right. Thank you for joining me on this little design assignment. Hey, I love what, there's no client except myself, and I can kind of get in there and take the basis of Midjourney and face swap and my own design interests and kind of meld them all together for a fun little project. I love it with Halloween. I love it with holiday cards. And gonna be sending these out, and I'm pretty happy with them. And I think everyone's gonna get a kick out of them. And that's it. That's the spirit of the season. All right. If you do me a favor and give this video a thumbs up, and like the video, comment below. Hey, if I went over anything too fast, let me know. I can go into more depth. I could even do these live if you guys are interested. I don't know. and subscribe to the channel. I'm so psyched that I got past that whole monetization thing. It's like a burden off of me. Now I can move on. And yeah, all right. Until next week. Oh, happy Thanksgiving for those in the U.S. that are celebrating. And is Thanksgiving the appropriate holiday to... Anyway, have a great time. Enjoy the time off with your family and friends. And all right, until next time.